Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. It's a wet old day here in Sydney town, and I'd like to start by saying Christos Anesti. I'm not sure about other faiths, other Christian faiths, but the Greek Orthodox faith, for the 40 days after the resurrection service on Sunday, the Paschal resurrection service, all the Greek Orthodox are called to greet each other for the 40 days following the resurrection with the affirmation and exclamation, Christos Anesti. And the response to whenever you hear Christos Anesti is Alithos Anesti or Alithinos Anesti, which basically means he is risen. So Christos Anesti basically proclaims and affirms the core Christian belief that Jesus is risen, and we say it in the present, and the response in answer to that is another affirmation where we say, indeed, he is risen. What I'd like to do today is, like I normally do on Jim's 5am Club, is I'd like to do yet another book summary. And we've surpassed the 1,500 vlogs to date. My YouTube channel has well over 1,500, close to 1,600 videos, because I've done 61 videos in Greek as well. So I've done 1,527, I think, so far in English, and an additional 61 on top of that. And the other great message that I'd like to share with everybody is that because I do my videos in English, YouTube, through the gifts of artificial intelligence, is not only capable of subscripting my videos in the English language, but there can also be an opportunity for people in the audience who don't speak English to watch the video with a subscript of another language. So there's 17 other languages so far that can be selected. So my reach, in terms of my platform reach and my message reach, is in the tens of thousands now, in terms of how many languages this video, this message, this book summary, this gift from Jim's 5am Club can be translated in and shared free of charge. The book summary that I choose to deliver today is entitled Bittersweet, a book by a female author named Susan Cain. And it's a book about understanding, about appreciating, about embracing, about leveraging the full spectrum of emotions and feelings that we have available to us, and knowing that all of these emotions, both positive and negative, are required in order to live a balanced life. You can't have a life just full of joy. You just can't have a life where you eat birthday cake every single day, because life will lose its meaning and you won't be able to express and feel the full spectrum of emotions that you have available. So we'll go through these points throughout this video, and one of the great things about this channel is that we try and identify 2 or 3 key messages from each book, from each author, from each source of OPE, other people's experiences, that we can learn from, that we can seek life hacks, and that we can incorporate into our inventory of skills, our backpack of patterns that we can refer to at a later point in time in our lives. Because what we've learnt over time is that the art of learning is simply the process of adding the unknown to the known. And the more that we know, the more we're capable of knowing. The more that we learn, the more that we're capable of learning. And for that reason, it is important, very, very important, to invest in yourself, in your education, in your personal experiences, as well as other people's experiences, as early as you can in life, so that you can continue to add meaning and interpretation to those experiences, and create a worldview, create a balanced view, so that you have a better and more, balanced perspective on what's going on, so that you can traverse and get through life as best you can. Morning, Stefan. How are you, mate? So the author kicks off the book with an observation where she says that the secret that our poets and philosophers have been trying to tell us for centuries now is that our longing is the great gateway to belonging. Our longing is the great gateway to belonging. And he kicks off the book with a beautiful story where a young girl loses her doll in the park and goes back to try and find it and is crying. And the author sees this young girl in distress, that she's lost her loved, well-loved and special doll, and he tells her that he's a postman for a doll company, and he sends her letters every day. He arranges to drop off letters into her mailbox at home where her parents live and she lives, and each of those letters describe from the doll's point of view what is happening to that doll. So the letters basically say to the little girl that the doll has gone to another place in search of adventure, in search of other things in life, and for the girl not to fret, not to be disappointed, not to cry, because the doll is doing well and enjoying her time on her new adventure. And the last letter that is sent to the little girl is where the letter says that everything will be fine and that the doll is getting married and is going to live happily ever after, to soothe the pain that that young girl was going through and to help that girl move on and to get beyond her grief and suffering. So the key message from this author is that basically everything that you will ever love in life, you'll eventually lose. But love will return again in a different form. And we all need to be comforted in the knowledge that God is the only guaranteed and enduring love that we can't possibly outlive or lose in our lives. So if you're going to bank on a source of love, then the most appropriate and the most fulfilling and the most guaranteed source of love is God's love, which is more important than your parents' love, your relatives' love, your partner's love, your children's love, and all of the other loves that you may encounter in your life. Because we are called to love God, to worship God, to serve God with all our heart, mind and soul. So there in a message is a very important and empowering call to action. And to understand that love is bittersweet. It's got both bitter and sweet parts. The Greeks call it charmolipi, and we've just gone through a service, the Paschal service, which is bittersweet. Bitter in terms of God, in terms of Jesus, going through his passions and being crucified and dying on the cross, and sweet in terms of the resurrection, that moment where Mary Magdalene realized that Jesus had fulfilled his promise and had resurrected both body and soul, and the joy, the ecstasy, the overwhelming emotions of that moment, with the exclamation of Christos Anesti that she shared with the other disciples as she spread the news, the good news that Jesus had resurrected and had conquered death, not only for himself but for all humanity. So to fully savor our lives, to fully express and to live in a total form, we need to embrace both light and darkness, both sweetness and bitterness, both joy and sadness. And when the Greek Orthodox get married, they have the sugared almonds as part of the bomboniere, as part of the gifts to the guests of the weddings, and these represent this bitter sweetness of life. The almond is bitter and the sugar coating is sweet, and how life is, initially it's sweet, then you go through bitter bits. So that's one of the key messages from this book and from this author. So in terms of the three key messages, the author here basically reminds us, and this is a powerful message for all people, for all children, that positive and negative emotions go hand in hand. And if we want to go through life avoiding only some of them, what will eventually happen is that we will end up suppressing our feelings altogether. So you need to welcome, you need to appreciate, you need to accept, embrace, and leverage all of your emotions, both positive and negative, because if you don't experience the lows, the very, very deep lows, then you're not going to fully appreciate and be in a position to catapult yourself to experience the very, very highs. You're basically going to flatline your experiences, your emotions, and limit your joys and your sorrows for your entire life. So what the author here is saying is to release the handbrake of your emotions and to know that they work together. They work in harmony together. So the deeper the low, the greater the high. The greater the high, the deeper the low. And to know that one follows the other, just like economic growth and economic hardship, recession, follow each other in a regular sort of pattern. And I remember in economics at City University many years ago learning that the longer the recession is, the longer the boom will be. Or the longer the boom is, the longer the recession that will follow. And similarly, life is the same. You can't have tremendous joy without tremendous pain. And the author then talks about a very sad story to help express this, where he says that in Sarajevo, back in 1992, when they were going through a terrible war, there were people who were lined up in the city centre there at a building to receive their food rations, and a missile hit the building and killed 22 people, including women, children, aged people, and a whole variety of people who formed part of that community within that town, within that city. And what happened then was a celloist would suit up every day, and for 22 days he would go to that place of sorrow, that place of pain and suffering, where those people needlessly died from that wayward missile that hit the building, and he would play his cello for 22 days straight. And he did that just to show that we live in a spectrum, and we can't express love without despair. We can't feel love without loss. We can't gain inspiration without despair. And and this was the purpose. So our feelings appear and occur on a spectrum. And if we try to avoid only one side of a balance, we end up suppressing our total emotions altogether. So you need to understand, and this is a really profound point, that at any point in time, you need to ask yourself and to check yourself and to say to yourself that whatever you're feeling at this point in time is only half of the potential total emotion that you could be experiencing. If you're feeling really, really happy, your team has just scored a try in a grand final, you've also got to understand that that feeling can reverse when the other team scores and beats you on the hooter in the grand final. So we're always only experiencing one side of the emotion at a time, but that half emotion that you're experiencing, you're meant to experience it at the greatest level that you possibly can, knowing that the opposite side is going to be the complementary, supplementary side of that emotion as well. So we need to look at both sides of the coin and to know that good follows bad and bad follows good. The rainbow follows a storm, calm follows a storm, storm follows calm, and to appreciate those things. The author also goes on to say that Western society tends to obsess and to focus intently on winners and losers, and to force positivity. Now we live in a world now where positivity is forced upon people and has become a craze. And an interesting thing that I just learnt today, which I wasn't quite aware of, that smiling the art of smiling isn't a natural phenomenon for human beings. And the author here seems to say that smiling goes back to the Calvinist faith, where people believed in everything being preordained, and they smiled in order to act like winners. But the real lesson for all of us, for our children, for our families, is that you can't win all the time, and we don't need to pretend that we are winners all the time. You know, God will gift us with experiences that He knows will be of value to our soul and to our growth and development. And He won't allow us to go through pain and suffering that He doesn't believe that we're capable of managing and learning from. So we don't need to pretend, and there's no need for fake positivity, I guess, is the message coming from this author. And the author finishes off with a philosophical discussion where he talks about the importance of aging. And the older we get, the more aware we become of our mortality. One of the big challenges that people face these days is that they try and look and act and be young forever. This whole concept of being 21 forever. This concept of mothers in their 50s and 60s competing against their daughters in their 20s and 30s for attraction and for attention, through augmenting their bodies and trying to, live a fake life. What the author says is that you've got to let yourself grow old and grow old gracefully, even though in Western society it's frowned upon. Western societies like Australia, for example, glorify emerging talent. We always want to have a bet on who the next great artist is going to be, who the next pop star is going to be, and hence why we have so many of these shows on television, these reality programs where we're looking for the next great talent. But what we should be doing, and what other societies do in Asia and in Northern Europe, I think, is that they revere, they respect their elders, because they use the elders as a goalpost in terms of where all people should be trying to reach and become. We shouldn't have our children, the youth, to be our goalposts. We should have the youth trying to emulate and to live their lives thinking about their futures and their senior years, and to get married, to stay married, to have families, to be role models, and not to be pop stars just trying to capture attention and to compete with each other for attention and to steal the limelight from others. So the author also says that as we become older, we become more aware of our mortality, and we end up becoming happier because we know that the years that we have are gifts, and we don't have all that much time on our hands. So we need to live our life and live the full spectrum that life has to offer us, and to know that we're all going to have a different life. We're going to have a different past. We're going to experience a different present, a different here and now. I am here, you're somewhere else. And even if you were here, you'd be focusing and obsessing on something completely different to what I'm currently doing. And we're all going to have a different future, an unknown future. but we all have our fate, and we all are going to experience something different. So we need to live our life to our fullest, and not to mute life, not to mute grief, not to mute happiness, and to understand that we are experiencing a sense of impermanence, and which is beautiful, very, very beautiful, because we learn to love, we learn to forgive, and we learn to appreciate and to live with gratitude. So on that point, I'd like to wish you all the very best for today, and to once again proclaim and affirm Christos Anesti to all my friends and family, and to wish you all the very best for today and for our tomorrows as well. Take care, Yassas, and until we meet again, I look forward to coming to you from a different place with a different message of empowerment, where we can live, learn, and pass it on, and pick up a few life hacks along the way that may improve our day and may improve our lives. Yassas, take care, and bye for now.